Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about something so many people silently struggle with, insomnia. If you ever spent hours staring at the ceiling, exhausted but unable to sleep, you are definitely not alone. To help us understand what we're really going on when sleep won't come and what actually helps, we're joined by Dr. Christine Janev, a sleep therapist who specializes in CBT-I or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Let's dive right in.
So to start off, what exactly is CBT-I and how does it help people with insomnia?
Great question. So this is a standardized protocol using the cognitive behavioral model, and it's specified for working with people with sleep issues. It is a treatment for insomnia, and it's been used for decades, and there's lots of evidence and research to back it up that it is a standardized treatment. So it's recognized as kind of the gold standard of treatment for insomnia, as well as many other mental health issues. So it's kind of a specific model that's used.
You mentioned CPTI helps with both thoughts and behaviors around sleep. Can you explain what that looks like in practice?
Mm-hmm. So specifically, CBT looks at both the cognitive, so that's how we think, and the behavioral aspects of sleep, such as how we think about our quality of sleep and what do we do when we're having difficulty sleeping. So as an example, if I have experienced issues falling asleep, I may start thinking about how tired I might be the next day, how I may not be able to function in my job, and how this may lead to others noticing my inabilities. And my thoughts may I might start to make some conclusions like, if I don't sleep well tonight, I'm not going to be able to work as fast as my colleagues, and I might get fired. So it really looks at both, our behaviors and our thinking. So the behaviors that I might do is I might try to go to sleep earlier, or because I have trouble getting up in the morning because I'm extra tired, I may actually start to avoid going to work or, going to school and taking care of those tasks and chores that I might have to do in the day. So it's really looking at both aspects. About 30% of people at some point will have or report symptoms of insomnia. And there's really many different causes. So there's not going to be one treatment solution for insomnia, but the cognitive behavioral model will look at the main aspects of behavior and those cognitions or those thoughts. We also look at, what are the aspects of the sleep issue? Is it falling asleep, or is it staying asleep? Or is it waking up too early? When I do work with my clients, I really like to collaborate with the family doctor and to make sure that we've cleared any physical, biological reasons why the person might be having trouble falling asleep. So if the client hasn't done that yet, I certainly recommend that they go see and speak to their family doctor. Things like iron levels or, thyroid levels, right, can impact your ability to sleep and stay asleep, or also how you feel in terms of energy levels. So we want to certainly clarify that first. And then I use the doctor's recommendations to really help specify or make that protocol individualized for the individual and their sleep issues. So if it is something like falling asleep, and there's no biological reason for the person having trouble falling asleep, then we certainly look at what does that look like. Are they staying up too late? Are they doing something before, like later in the evening? So if we exercise too late in the day, that can impact, might make us feel good, but we might be too energized to fall asleep. So things like that. So I really like to work with the family doctor to make sure we know if we can determine the cause or the reason for the insomnia.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. So, one thing people are often surprised about is the idea of sleep restriction. That sounds a little scary. So, what does it actually involve?
Yes, so sleep restrictions are part of the protocol. So after the assessment, the assessment really would look like me asking the client a lot of questions around their history of sleep. What does their day-to-day functioning look like when they sleep well and when they don't sleep well? And then also understanding their physical issues. So part of the protocol will be that assessment, and usually that takes place in the first or second, the first session for sure, and it might also carry over into the second session. Then I'm asking the clients to, track. So sometimes we use technology, our phones or an Apple Watch or an Android type tracking device so that we can really get an understanding of what does that sleep look like. When do they fall asleep? How many times are they waking up? And again, technology is great nowadays that we can actually track that. We don't have to use paper and pencil. But I've also asked clients to, and there's many different charts that we use in the Insomnia protocol, that they're actually tracking when they wake up, how many times they might wake up at night, but also looking at what I call the sleep, or the protocol calls the sleep window. When do they actually naturally fall asleep, and when are they naturally waking up? So that we can, after that tracking period, and that might take a week or two to get all of that data. So CBT is also a very science-based model in that we're asking the clients to discover and make those connections for themselves. Because I could tell, my clients, maybe you should go to bed earlier, and that's going to help you feel better. It's really important for the client to buy into their own health and their own challenges. And so when we use something like tracking, like a chart, where they're actually noticing that, as an example, if they exercise during the day or if they take a walk on a sunny day, that their sleep quality is actually better at nighttime. So I could tell them that, and there's lots of research that says how we move our bodies during the day will make our sleep quality better at nighttime. I want the client to be able to see that for themselves and really, connect those dots. So once we have that data, what we can see by the tracking, and sorry, this is a long answer to your question, but it's important to talk about that sleep window. So the sleep window is when you're naturally feeling sleepy, and if we don't do anything to keep ourselves awake, we will naturally fall asleep. And when is that time where we naturally wake up in the morning? And by tracking, we usually find that out, and it is individualized for every person. So I might naturally go to sleep at 9:30 at night, and my body naturally wakes up around 7:30. So that would be determined as my sleep window. Now, I may do things to push that time in the evening by staying up later, scrolling, watching TV, maybe spending time on my screen, maybe talking to people, maybe doing all sorts of things in the evening. Or I might have not exercised, or I might have had a coffee late in the day. So caffeine might push that window for me, and that will impact my morning window too. Once we have that window, what we do is we try to look at, again, the sleep tracking will show what's happening during the night, right? And so if the person's waking up at a very particular time during the night, so say they wake up once at 2:00 and then once again at 5:00, and if the time that their alarm goes off so that they can get ready for school is around 7:00. So it's not a natural waking up, it's an alarm or something that's causing the person to wake up because they have to. Now they're extra tired. And so sleep restriction is about how do we push that window on both sides, so the falling asleep and the waking up, so they're not waking up in those other very inconvenient times in the night. So we might start to work either waking up earlier. So if you get up at if you wake up at 5:00 for whatever reason, we actually ask that the client stay up at 5:00. Because what that's going to do is then cause them to be more tired in the evening, and we hope to reestablish that natural falling asleep, right? And we can sometimes work on it at the other end, which is, say the person, goes to bed at 11 or 12, but they're starting to feel sleepy and they have a coffee. So we ask them to kind of not do that and naturally kind of squeeze that window of sleep so that we can reestablish the window of sleep that works well for them. And so it can be very hard for clients because when they come to me, they're already fatigued, low energy. They might have had this sleep problem for a really long time and now they're depressed, or they might be really anxious, like I can't sleep. It's very impactful in a life. And so all of a sudden, here's a professional after we've done some tracking where I'm telling the person, you need to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, or you need to go to bed earlier, right? It's a hard ask for a professional, for a client that's already struggling and already exhausted, right? So it can be challenging, and we do it in very small increments. So as an example, we've just experienced in Canada, right, like that time change that we have every spring, and then we have another one in the fall, right? So it takes a week for people to it's just an hour, and it takes a week, sometimes for our bodies to adjust. So I use that as an example to get clients to buy into this idea that we already do it, right? And so how do we do it in a way that we can work with it? The client's not going to be extra tired. And so we might start going to bed earlier, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes every night until we finally hit that window. So it's not such a huge ask. And the waking up early, like, so if you wake up at 5 o'clock and you just finally fall back asleep at 6:30 and your alarm wakes up at 7, that's a really hard ask to stay up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? But again, it's based on research. It's a pretty quick turnaround. Like within the week, we can get that window working better for the client.
That sounds great.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight, Miss Janev. Sleep is something we all need, but so many of us struggle with. Hopefully this conversation helps shed some light for anyone out there battling insomnia. Thank you once again, and have a great day.